In my world there is music and good vibes and laughter and lovers, adventure and friendship. We know who we are.
Welcome to Be the Wellness Podcast, where we help you master your body, mind, and the experience of life through insightful conversation, interviews with experts and thought leaders, all with a side of marital banter and some good old-fashioned humor.
Yes, we are your hosts, Adam and Vanessa Lambert, and we're committed to helping you live life fully expressed physically, mentally, and experientially. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation.
Hello and welcome everybody to Be the Wellness Podcast. Adam and Vanessa Lambert hanging out.
Coming in hot with episode number 222.
Yeah, Vanessa likes the numbers.
I'm excited about that.
You know, it's one of those things, right? It's like, who cares if it doesn't actually matter? You know, it's like if you like the numbers, you like the matters.
As a blanket statement.
Yeah.
Who cares if it doesn't actually matter?
Yeah, it's not like you're trying to, I don't know.
Because guess what? It doesn't. None of it matters.
It's not like whether or not numbers have any significance has anything to do with like whether or not we'll ever make it to Mars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or something like that.
There might be some numbers involved. I don't.
Yeah, but whether or not 1111 means something.
Oh, 1111 definitely means something.
Okay.
Do you want to know what 1111 means? Actually?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, actually,
you don't know.
I don't know exactly what it means, but I'll tell you some common theories.
Okay.
Some theories. So, well, in numerology, right, there's like a lot of energy around 1111 being like an angel number. Oh no, actually, I think that the 444s are angel numbers, but the 1111 is what a lot of people see. They say when they're starting to change their vibration. So, like if they say it's like an ascension number, so if you start seeing that a lot, it means that energetically, like you're changing, you're coming up in frequency and you're seeing that number a lot. So it's kind of like it's almost like a little nod from the universe. Like, oh yeah, you
look at the clock about the same time every day. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what you would say.
Yeah. But this is what I'm saying though, is like, it doesn't really matter. So if you want to, like, if it means something to you to like,
yes,
have that little thing every day, that little like, oh look, it's 1111,
or like 1111. I mean, any of them, 2222, 3, all of them have a little bit different frequency and like what they relate to. And I'm actually not as well versed in numerology, so it's like isn't really my strong like lane. But one of the things is like if you're constantly seeing repetitive numbers, that means that your energy is changing. And like a lot of times I'll see them when I'm in the midst of like a decision, and I'll kind of be like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then sometimes I'll see the repetitive numbers. And it's like, again, like just a little wink from the universe of like, all right, yeah, we hear you. You're on it.
Paying attention.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
you
cool.
might as well look for magic in the world.
Yeah, no, totally. This was kind of my point is
Yeah.
like, you should probably do that. Like, it arguably, now, whether or not you should make like significant life decisions based solely on numerology, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But if you like, if it
Unless
makes you happier,
you really believe in it, and then like it would cause you like weird energy to not make decisions based on that, then you should make decisions on it because it's like,
it's your thing.
You have a vibratory field around it. But like, not that we're really going to go deep down the rabbit hole and all this stuff, but I'll tell you a little like short story about how this whole ascension thing usually works. An anecdote, yeah. Wait, antidote, not anecdote, right? Antidote.
No.
Because they're two different things. Anecdote.
Right.
And then antidote, right? Aren't they two different words?
They are 100% two different words. Antidote,
yeah,
which would be like the cure for something.
Oh, yeah.
And
okay.
Anecdote, which would be a story about something.
Okay.
Right.
So we're on anecdote.
Yes.
So there's like this little thing that happens for a lot of people that start on a spiritual path, which is especially people who didn't have any kind of proclivity towards that.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have this moment of like awakening or this kind of like change in perception around how the world works. And they'll be like, oh my gosh, like we really are like the manifestors and the creators of our life.
Right.
And you'll have this explosion of energy that's like really amazing, and everything's synchronistic and everything is just like in flow and all of the stuff lines up. And then inevitably there's kind of like a little pendulum swing where
it's a little manic.
Yeah. Where like you'll kind of come back into like maybe things don't work out the same. And then you start questioning the whole thing. And then you're just like, you know, you can tend to want to like give up the good fight at that point and just go back to the facts because it's much more stabilizing. But if you make it over that little hump and you really like get into the flow, then it's forever. So people out there who are going through their process, I'll just offer you that, like, if that sounds familiar, you've been, you know, had that moment of aha, so to speak, and then kind of like a little,
and then you had to like pay bills or something.
Yeah, exactly. And you were like, wait, I manifested $1,000.
My car payment's still here. Like what?
Overdrawn. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Just hang in there.
Yeah.
Hang in there and keep doing the vibratory work, because it does catch up, and it's a snowball effect for sure. Yeah.
I think there's definitely something to that. You know, it's like, well, it's almost, I mean, we'll talk about this a lot more in next week's podcast, but it's almost like this creation of your own luck thing, right? So it's like the more you're looking for it, the more you're going to see it. Yeah. And whether it's good or bad or neutral.
Totally.
You know, it's like everything's beige. Still very beige around here. Like, well, if that's all you're looking for, you know, you miss all of the red.
Then you must
tiles.
be in Roseville.
Yeah. or you're in suburban California.
Yeah, exactly.
Like pretty much anywhere.
Because every suburban town in California is beige.
Just generally beige. Yeah. So weird.
I don't know what's up with that, but it's a trend.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I don't know. It's just got to be like a cheap stucco.
Yeah.
But you know what's frequently exists in those beige suburban little shopping malls? GameStop.
Bump.
We
Diamond
cannot.
hands.
We cannot have an episode go on right now without talking a little bit about GameStop.
Well, let's just first tee this up with like the fact that it was literally the full wolf moon. Okay. Yeah. This is where we can completely marry the
worlds.
Both worlds in one conversation here. It was the full wolf moon. Okay. Let's just go
Thursday
from there.
Was a full wolf moon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what happened?
Well, Thursday was also oh man. Okay. We're probably going to have to back it up just a little bit.
Yes.
But Thursday was a massive short selling attack from Wall Street on retail investors, basically. I mean, that might be a little dramatic, but it's really true.
It's pretty true, yeah.
Okay. So here's what's going on. Like if you're we never talk about politics and finance and stuff like that on this podcast, but this is such a freaking interesting thing going on in our world that's like, we should talk about it. So
it's like the reality bubble is literally bursting.
Yeah. Something is there's a moose loose in the hoose.
You may see 1111 while we talk about this, which is a warning.
This might occur. Okay, so let's just go like a 30,000 foot view of like what's going on. And I am by no means a financial advisor. I don't know shit about this stuff, but it's fascinating.
Yes.
So basically, GameStop, right, which is a small retail. Well, they're not small. They were a pretty massive retailer of like video games, straight up. Like you go in and physically purchase a video game. So the pandemic really put a hurting on them. Like they were already hurting because like people download stuff now. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, think about Redbox when it went to Netflix, right? It's like you don't go get the DVDs anymore.
Right.
Same thing with gaming, right? So they were kind of hurting, and then the pandemic really crushed them.
Right.
And so like a lot of companies, they were really barely hanging on. And then a CEO guy came in, put in a whole bunch of money, came onto the company to turn them around. A guy with a whole bunch of e-commerce background that like Chewy.com, I think was his company, right? So he's like, look, we're going to figure out how to turn this thing around and solve GameStop's problems. So the stock started to go up. And when the stock started to go up, a lot of people thought, okay, this is just a little bit of a bubble. Like there's no way that this is actually going to turn around. And so a bunch of hedge funds decided to short this stock because they didn't think that this company stood a chance of turning around.
Right.
So they shorted it massively.
Yeah.
And like to the tune of 140% of available shares, which doesn't even fucking make sense.
Right. Well, and for those of you out there who don't know what shorting is, because like before, well, I mean, maybe you saw The Big Short a few years ago or whatever, but it means they're basically betting against the company. They're betting that the stock price is going to drop on this company.
So much so that like it's not uncommon for them to nefariously manipulate the market so that it goes down to the company might even go bankrupt.
Yeah,
right. So This is like a thing. It's it's terrible.
It's
like
awful.
from my perspective, it's like, dude, that is just a dick move. Yeah. You know, and if you listen to,
it reminds me of like, I was telling you this morning, but it reminds me of like Pretty Woman when like Richard Gere's company was like, they basically like go in and sneak attack companies and buy them for like pennies on the dollar, right? And then, but obviously they would try to like then build them back up. But this is like without that. This is just people who want to bankrupt companies and make a profit off of that bet. Yeah.
And I mean, there are people who are shorting companies who are like, hey man, I just think this thing's going to go down. And so I'm going to protect the downside on it. And like that kind of stuff does happen. But there's also like legit short attacks. Like this is a real thing.
I want to just go on the record as saying I'm not down with this whole shorting thing. I just think it's so fucked up. So like if you're doing this out there, like I kind of just judge you a little bit. I'm sorry. But I do. It's like just the idea. I can't even believe that this goes on where like we go and look for companies that might be hurting and then kill them. Then we kill them with our energetic imprint of like not only were you hurting now, but all of us are going to put our energy into you failing because we want to make money off of that. I'm like, fuck that, dude. That's so fucked up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, people out there who do that.
And so it's not something that gets publicized a lot because people are like, this is kind of a dick move, you know? And since 2008, there are a few large funds who started to publish their research, right? And so then people started kind of paying attention and like kind of getting on the bandwagon with shorting and being like, well, actually, you know, these guys are, and so then it almost becomes like a momentum trade, right? Or like people are piggybacking onto somebody's initial idea, which is how like a lot of this stuff goes. So Tesla famously over last year had a significant amount of short sellers that were betting against and lost so much that like Elon Musk had a bunch of red satin shorts made and called them shorty shorts and like mailed them to these hedge funds, right?
Which
is amazing.
Makes me love Elon Musk even more.
So it's like there's been this thing going on with shorts between like the sort of, I don't even know what they are. It's like there's just this other world of investors, which I mean, it's technically retail investors, but there's like a whole other subgenre of these people who are like, to hell with you guys shorting these companies, you know, especially that we think are important. So GameStop, same deal, shorting this thing, trying to drive it into the ground. So many jumped on board that the short interest was over 120%, which means, and this is where it's like, it's crazy. It's like, how can you even possibly borrow? Because that's basically what you're doing. You're borrowing shares and then selling them back, and you're up to like 120% of the available shares, which doesn't even make sense. Like, so people are like borrowing borrowed shares without it even happening. So it's like deep in the short interest.
Like second and third mortgage on your house, basically.
Kind of exactly. But you don't even have a house.
That's true.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like it's somebody else's house.
Yeah, totally.
So it's super bizarre. And anyway, so these guys, the short sellers, saw an opportunity to make money by putting this thing in the ground. A handful of retail investors on a Reddit sub-thread called Wall Street Bets noticed that these short sellers overextended themselves and said, hey, look, if we buy this stock, they're going to have to cover it.
Right.
And we can create a short squeeze, which is basically where the shorted stocks that they borrowed start costing them so much money that they have to cover and buy those stocks.
Right.
And if people, a whole group of, you know, essentially apes on the internet decide that they want to hold that stock, they get to set the price.
Yeah.
Because they continue to lose money as they're paying the interest on this stuff and this, so hence the short squeeze.
Yeah.
So this has been going on for like the last month. It's been happening and it's been getting closer and closer and closer, and more people are buying GameStop. When this whole thing started, GameStop was trading at like $4. I think it closed at 415 maybe the other day. topped out at 508, right? So this is a significant multiple. So I think as of Friday, the short sellers had lost about $70 billion so far this year. Yeah. Which is what they deserve.
I'm sorry.
Well, yeah. So if you look at it like that, it's like they overextended themselves in a bad play and people caught them on it. Yeah. And now there's people, regular ass dudes, like this guy in his basement in freaking Boston, who's now up $47 million on this thing.
Yep.
Who are like, hey, you guys made a bad decision and now you're paying for it. Like, and this is how it goes. So this has been the drama that's been unfolding, right? And people's stocks are going through the moon, and there's just like this massive community effort that's taking place on Reddit, which is hilarious. And
which is like never in the history has happened. Like something like this is
we've never had the ability. Well, it's unprecedented for this level of market manipulation,
right? From the average
to happen from a decentralized amount of just normal retail investors. Like this kind of stuff happens all the time from the other side. Yes. Massive funds with billions and billions of dollars of backing,
right?
Driving things up, driving them down, whatever.
I.e. billions.
Yeah.
Every episode of Billions you've ever watched.
This is an entirely different ballgame because it's just a bunch of random people on an anonymous freaking forum saying, hey, this is cool. I really like this stock, and a bunch of other like hilarious stuff. If you want to go to the subreddit and read through it, it's hilarious. But there's a lot of people in there doing incredible amounts of due diligence. There's some very smart people in there. And there's a whole bunch of just regular people that are like, okay, I'm in,
Yeah.
And so it might end badly for some of them, like for sure. It's like, this is just kind of the nature of this whole thing. But what happened on Thursday was that the squeeze really started to come on. Like the stock went from 150 to I think like 400 on Wednesday. On Thursday, there started being problems with the brokerage firm. So like if you use, like I use one called Interactive Brokers. Robinhood is the super popular one. That's kind of like this gamified, millennial based stock trading platform, right? They're a big one. A bunch of these guys all of a sudden started having outages, all of a sudden wouldn't allow you to buy any more stocks. They started essentially shutting down who could buy and who could sell at a time where the buying needed to continue for the retail investors, needed to continue to buy stocks and to kind of keep this ball running. And these brokerage firms stopped them from doing that, made it possible for them to sell only to the retail investors.
Yeah.
And so on the flip side, instead of halting the entire thing, which would have been like the right thing to do, because it was crazy volatile, there's all kinds of stuff going on. They should, like NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange should have just halted trading on that stock completely.
But that's slowed everything down. Yeah.
They stopped the retail investors from purchasing more and allowed the shorts to purchase and sell.
I hope that this is landing on you guys as how freaking crazy this is, because like this is honestly insane. This is blatant like market manipulation, and it's like blatantly saying that like all of the investment firms, all of the trading firms are staunchly in the pockets of the big guys, know, and are like doing what it takes to protect them. Like it's insane.
Yeah. And and it is really complicated. And there's little kernels of truth in what these guys are saying. Like, look, we had to halt trading in order so we could get our books caught up, blah, 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 blah. That's true. But that should have halted both
everything.
Sides. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It should have been the whole thing. So anyway, retailers lost a lot of money on Thursday, and the short sellers were able to cover a lot of their potential downside. So pretty crazy, like how this whole thing went down. And so now, I think I read a thing yesterday that said that 89% of the users on Robinhood are abandoning Robinhood and deleting their accounts, right? So it's like, they just shook the wrong tree. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so obvious. Like, and even here, so here in the States of the politics here, like you couldn't have two people more diametrically opposed than AOC, whatever her name is, Angela or whatever, I don't know, AOC and Ted Cruz.
Right.
You know what I mean? These are like completely different ends of the political spectrum are like in the same corner, beating on the door of the SEC going, what is going on here?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's like we've been looking for something to unify America for a while. And it's like, it's probably going to be Reddit and GameStop.
It was
You know what I mean?
Wolf of Wall Street moon.
It was the Wolf of Wall Street moon. So it's pretty crazy stuff. And I think we're just like, this is just the tip of the iceberg, like with kind of the fallout from what all's going to go on here. But like, it's real deal stuff though. You know what I mean? Like people are taking out digital ads on billboards all over the country, you know, with like all of these emojis and all of the vernacular from the Wall Street Bets Reddit forum. And it's a big deal.
It is. And it's, you know, it's honestly, it's like, there's so many fundamental freedoms at risk right now. And like, you know, with the financial crisis of 2008, with the massive bailouts and all of that, like it still was kind of under this cloak of like for the people.
Yeah.
This is like so clearly not for the people and so clearly against the people that it's like, I don't know that there's ever been something this obvious, at least that like I've been around to really tune into. So it's really amazing. Back to the ascension process, because this is actually so amazing because we're actually getting an opportunity to like really see things as they are. And it gives us an opportunity to really put our intentions into how we want to interact and what we believe in. And that's why I'm just like diamond hands all the way. I hope that these retail people pull this off and that it's just a moment in time that sparks a frequency change around our financial systems. Because it's like, I mean, it's just, it's such a BS game for people. It's so rigged against the regular person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole thing is set up to do one thing. And that is to perpetuate wealth with the people who kind of already have it. Like it's really hard to break in. Once you're in, the whole thing is set up to maintain what you've got. Yeah. And it's painfully obvious, you know, as soon as there's a tiny crack, you know, and what's crazy, I mean, you guys can just go on YouTube or wherever and watch the news clips that are coming out of because CNBC and all of these news outlets who are so clearly like in on this game. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're bringing these people on to like give them a voice and they just sound like the whiniest, crybabiest people who have never lost. Yes. Like they sound like people who have never actually lost. And they're like, but this is just not fair. And, and you're just like, dude, are you kidding me? Like this is how tone deaf are you to come on a public news channel right now and complain that you're being attacked by common people using their stimulus checks to attack rich people? Like this is seriously, this is your argument? You know, that's bizarre. Anyway.
Yeah. So folks that are getting, you know, regular ass news out there, do not pity them.
Yeah. Well, it's true. You know what? It really is true because the narrative and like, if there's anything that's really obvious about this is that there's like a playbook around how to do these significant short selling attacks and all of this kind of stuff. And it includes news and it includes it's this whole multimedia sort of barrage that puts, you know, that makes it all look like this is how it's supposed to go down and kind of shifts the blame with all of this stuff. And that's really what's being spun in a lot of the media. I mean, even, you know, like Reuters and stuff, like you read through it and you're like, yeah, this is, you're not telling the full story here. You're getting a lot of the sort of regulator speak side of it. Well, we had to shut down trading to protect our investors and and you're like, none of your investors are asking to be protected. Yeah. What they're asking is that they allowed to be traded in a free and open market, which is what everybody signed up for.
Exactly.
And that's not
and that is not what's happening. And if you were actually protecting them, you would have just halted everything. That's just the thing. Is like they showed their hand completely. And that's, I don't know. There's nothing actually, it's funny because there's not much else that has ever actually riled me up this much. Like I don't get that like COVID. I'm like, yeah, dude, everybody's doing their version of COVID, whatever. I'm not that riled up about it. This, for some reason, it gets at the like core of my freedom fighter. I'm just like, argh.
Oh, totally. Well, dude, and especially it's like when like one of the key or not key, but certainly like at the forefront perpetrators of this whole thing is an app called Robinhood.
Yeah.
Right. And like the whole idea behind Robinhood is to steal from the rich and give to the poor.
Right.
And there's this whole culture in Robinhood of like, yeah, this is the place where the small guys can finally get it.
Yeah.
Until you hit a certain threshold.
Yeah.
In which case everybody knows,
It's such a like snapshot of really the way that our society is set up. It's like, yeah, we want you to be like a little bit successful, so you like want to keep going, and you're like, motivated to strive, but not too successful that like you actually want to
start changing things,
try to like be rich like us. Like, like
I know,
no, you're tripping now.
I know, and it's so weird because it's like I know some really really rich people, and they're fucking awesome.
Of course,
you know what I mean, and it's like, so it's not like it's this. It's not that. It's a weird thing.
It's not about the individual. It's about the consciousness around it. And like, you can be an amazing person with $0 and you can be an amazing person with $1 billion. But like, it's the consciousness around the culture that has just been untouched for so long that like now you're getting close to the essence of it. Right. And you're like, oh, so this is what this is made of. And it's just interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
So
anyway, Wolf of Wall Street moon.
Yeah. And if you own GME, hold it. Hold it until your fingers bleed.
Well, yeah. Or else you're a pussy. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, some people are going to have to cover their things. Totally. Everybody's got to live. But man, oh man, it's a crazy world out there.
It is a crazy world. All right. So that was a really long intro.
It was. Yeah.
For a detour that we didn't expect to take at all. But hopefully you guys got something out of it. Even just to think about that, you know what I mean? Maybe just to consider like, oh yeah, how does this whole financial system work? And I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and then another sort of ancillary benefit to this, there's a handful of other stocks that kind of followed the same train. AMC, which is like American cinemas, movie theaters, being another one. And so they basically got bailed out of about $600 million in debt by this, right? So their stock price got jacked up so high that one of their significant investors that had convertible stock, or they converted their debt to equity and then sold the stock.
Yeah. So there could be some positive sides to this.
Yeah, there's going to be movie theaters at the end of this whole thing.
Exactly. Instead of the short sellers basically, creating a situation where these businesses could never recover. Yeah. So, I mean, we could end this now, but obviously this has been a lot of the talk in our house. And I love how Adam's like, I know nothing about this. And I'm like, your version of knowing nothing about something is kind of hilarious.
Well, I know a lot about one perspective of it, which is the one that I've gathered.
If you have a different perspective of this, we'd love to hear it, because in the end, like maybe we really don't have it straight. Maybe there are like ways of looking at this that we're not thinking about. But
there definitely are.
Well, for sure. Yeah. But, it just seems, I don't know. So feel free to hit us up. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. Or better yet, let's like hire some professionals.
Yeah. Totally.
They can talk about this stuff. But yeah, it's fascinating stuff. So we shall see.
You have been hard at work at some really awesome stuff that we want to talk about today. And first of all, let's just talk about this assessment that you created, because you just put a lot of thought, a lot of effort actually into kind of helping people figure out like a baseline of what's going on with it.
What the hell's going on? Yeah. So, what it comes down to is that this year, and when we talked about this like briefly in a couple of intros in these various podcasts, but like this last year, 2020, there was a lot of things that, with our business and everything slowed down, from which to some degree was nice, right? Because we got like a chance to get caught up on some other stuff and everything. But when you're used to being as busy as we were before, and I mean like traveling and just nonstop going, it can be, it can really mask a lot of things, right? Like you just think, oh yeah, everything's good to go, and we're just kind of cruising right along. But then when everything slows down, then you can kind of turn the spotlight on to like what all is going on. And 2020 was really the first time since I left the fire department that I had slowed down enough to really look at what was going on with me. Right. Mm-hmm. And when I did that, like kind of what I found was that I'd really slipped quite a bit. like my fitness wasn't what it was, my discipline around even just like work ethic around getting stuff done. And, and all of that stuff was like, if I did a real sort of evaluation on myself with the whole thing, I was like, yeah, I would be getting like a negative performance evaluation like right now. This is what is going on with me. I would give me like a 4 out of 10 on some of this stuff,
Yeah.
And so what I kind of realized was like, oh wait, this is what everybody is sort of struggling with right now. And we're in a year where all of the things that you normally identify with, like I'm the guy that goes to the gym, like not going to the gym, or I'm the guy that, goes to work 7 days a week, works really hard for my family. Oh, you're not doing that anymore either. Or you're doing it from home, and like, which is different, So there's like a lot that's going on from this year that really fundamentally changes, I think, the way that we view ourselves, men especially. And like, I imagine that there's like a situation like this going on for women, but I don't have that experience. So like for men, this is really, I think, a significant deal, and maybe it's just men my age and maybe a little bit older that, maybe the next generation down feels kind of the same stuff, but there's just some really deep seated sort of, role and identity stuff around being the breadwinner, going to work every day and then coming home. Like there's like all of this stuff that's like baked in and built into who we are that, that some of us derive our purpose from. Right. So like, and I think we talked about this before, like even with your grandpa, right? It's like, he had all these kind of weird oddball jobs. You know what I mean? Like he cut hair. He was a garbage man. He did, all of this different stuff.
He owned a restaurant.
But every single one of them, it was like, it was the best thing that had ever happened. And he was so proud to have done that work. Right. Yeah. He derived a lot of meaning from having a job and being a provider. It was like part of the deal. Right. And so I think that's something that's baked in with us guys. And when things change and when that stuff gets taken away or fades away, this can even be like on purpose. Like I saw this happen all the time with guys when they retired. When they retired from the fire department, they've had like this massive sense of purpose for the last 30 years, and now it's gone. It's a real shock, and it can mess with you. It can really mess with your head. And so I experienced some of that this year. Of just being like, man, what the hell am I doing? Like I used to have this like job that even when there was nothing going on, like I showed up and I felt like I had somewhere to go every week.
Purposeful.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It was like, I go here, and even if we're not running calls, like I'm still organizing papers on my desk or what, you know what I mean? Like whatever. Right. There's really this sense of sort of purpose and direction with the whole thing. And a big piece of that for me as well was like just on the fitness side of it and all of that. I had a lot of roles and responsibilities in that world, and I carried a lot of kind of pride around that. And, and that held me very accountable to myself for being kind of on top of this stuff.
Yeah. It's like that old adage, like if you want to, I'm going to screw it up. If you want to learn something, learn it. But if you want to really know it, teach it. I don't know what but basically that's the thing, right? Like if you want to really have dominion over something, you have to be the one that's like harnessing the stuff so that people can really think of you as that expert or in that role of like holding the energy at a high level.
Yeah. 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 It's like those who can do, and those who can't teach. There's also that one. You're like, I can't do this, but I can teach it.
I can teach it. I know the things about it.
Yeah. But yeah, so there was all of this kind of stuff. And so for me, it became just very clear that, I've spent years, 20 some odd years cultivating this skill set around not falling apart when all sense of normalcy and everything around you is gone. And you're in these really weird and adverse scenarios where nobody else knows what to do and everybody else is losing their shit, and you're the one who keeps it together and makes all the right decisions. Like that's literally what my job was for, the majority of my adult life. And here I was like 2 years into quote unquote retirement and kind of forgot all of that stuff. I didn't forget it, but certainly stopped applying it to my life. And And so all of this kind of came together. Like when I was down in Costa Rica on the Iboga experience, like it really got sort of cemented. I mean, that drug, plant, whatever, poison, however you want to look at it, is very, very clear. Like when things that you're screwing up, it is like you are screwing this up. And it feels really, really true, you know? And also things that you're good at, it's like, yeah, you're doing this well. I mean, it's not like, oh, congratulations. It's like, you're doing fine in this regard. And you're like, okay.
Check the box.
Check the box.
Yeah.
Moving on. Let's find something you're not doing well. And
well, you should really quickly tell people what Iboga is, because I don't know that you ever really talked about this.
Yeah.
Like in any great detail.
Yeah, I don't know either,
I mean,
actually.
Not that it like needs a huge explanation, but you've talked about it a few times in passing, but you haven't really given like the full.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about Wall Street, so it's like we might as well cover,
I mean, we're
cover the other end of the spectrum.
This is gonna be a 6-hour podcast, okay, people?
Yeah. So Iboga is a plant medicine from that has its origins in Gabon, Africa. And Iboga is probably most famous currently, at least its alkaloid ibogaine, for its use in treatment of opioid addiction. And in fact, it's so popular for opioid addiction that there's Iboga shortage. So there's like there's a whole effort going on in Africa to cultivate more because it takes a while to grow. But anyway, it works really, really well for that. But in the sort of traditional Bwiti ceremony around the whole thing, it's their rite of passage. It's like the initiation ceremony is the deal in Gabon. And one of the sort of deals with it is that they call it the truth. Like if you want to experience the truth, that's what you get with Iboga. And that is very, very much what it feels like. It feels like your grandfather is just laying it out for you in like no uncertain terms. Everything that you experience feels like that's absolutely true. And there's just really no way to question it, which can be a really powerful, experience, right? Because like we can, especially like if you compare it to some of the other plant medicines like ayahuasca and stuff, where it's like all a little airy fairy and up to interpretation. And you're like, well, I don't know what's going on. I mean, well, there was a cat and there was a snake. And I was in a race car, and you're like, I'm not really sure what it means, but I felt great, and you're like, it's awesome. Iboga is not like that at all. It's like, this is what's up. You think it's this, but it's not. It's this, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's the deal. But it goes on for a really long time, like 30 hours.
Yeah. It's like the Mount Everest of plant medicine.
Yeah. You're going to go and do it for a while. So anyway, my experience with it was I got ridiculously sick, like to the point that it was problematic for the rest of the experience. Like I was having a hard time staying in kind of the thought flow that I wanted to be in because I was just throwing up all the time, which apparently is, like sometimes part of the deal, but I think I was excessive.
I had an
exceptionally high amount of nausea going on. But part of like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days after the experience, there was just some real solid clarity that came to me around just kind of how I'd been living my life and how all of this stuff had been going on. And one of the things that the facilitator said, he's like, well, Iboga treats you the way that you treat yourself. So if you have a hard time on Iboga, then you're probably not treating yourself very well. And I was real sick. So I was like, man, I'm maybe not really treating myself that well. And that was really what kind of started this introspective look back at the last year. And it's really true. Like I was meditating a lot and I was doing this and my diet's always pretty good. You know what I mean? But like a lot of the things that, were normally in place, I just kind of was letting slip. So anyway, this whole thing got me started on sort of reinvigorating this idea around helping people who are probably in the same boat, who have had some sort of experience in this last year or at whatever point, but certainly in the last year of feeling themselves slide, their entire situation getting changed, starting to question the purpose around what it is that they're doing and trying to kind of solve that problem. Because I mean, for me, it's like I said, I've had literally a lifetime of experience in solving for this problem. in having the discipline and the practices and the sort of mental tools and everything to get through these incredibly adverse and just shitty, stressful situations, not just get through them, but make better than average decisions all the way along the path. I mean, that's like literally what I do. And so not everybody has that experience, and then not everybody has experience in enduring a long stretch of adversity. Mm-hmm. And so what I did was I went back through kind of my knowledge bank on this. I'm like, what are the things that I think are the most important to have squared away here in order to build and maintain this level of resilience that's I know that it takes to survive in that kind of long, drawn out slog, of an experience. And so I sort of distilled all of this stuff down, and based on my experience with it, and then just like a lot of the data and stuff that we used to use in the fire department to assess this kind of stuff and pull it all together. And I created this assessment that looks at a few aspects of your life. So like in broad strokes, it looks at kind of your overall feel of yourself, sort of your bio, like how are you doing about this and that and the other thing? How do you feel about this? Blah, blah, blah. And then some straight up diagnostics, like what's going on with blood work? When was the last time you had this stuff done? Like how many monkeys are on your back that we can just take off, around this health front thing? And then another piece, which is like performance. So physical and mental performance, and some of this stuff might seem kind of weird for people who have never tested this stuff, mm-hmm. right? But it's like, if you don't know, you don't know. And there's something really powerful about knowing. So like when you, for example, if you don't know what your 1.5 mile run time is, right? And you're like, well, why would I need to know what my
14 minutes, 53 seconds.
Yeah, that's what yours? No, I'm sure you could do it faster.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay. So if you don't know your 1.5 mile run time, you might be like, well, what does that have to do with anything? And you're like, well, it actually correlates really tightly with a whole bunch of stuff, So like if you know what it is and it's relatively good or it's improving, then you know that there's something going on with yourself, right? But what I'm getting at is that because you don't know it, you don't have a value around it. But when you do know it, there's a level of confidence and certainty about your place in the world that materializes. So when you know these things, when you know your 1.5 mile run time, when you know your deadlift compared to body weight, when you know just like these mm-hmm. handful of simple things, you now are creating a structure that you fit within. And I'll tell you, I mean, this isn't going to be true for everyone. And so if it's not true for you, then I'm not talking to you. Basically is what it comes down to, But if it's ringing through to you, like as you start to materialize these benchmarks, these physical, these like marks of physical performance, these marks of mental performance, these marks of like health and longevity, as they start to pencil in, it creates this constellation of who you are as a person. And it gives you something like, what's the thing? That which is measured improves, mm-hmm. right? And so you now have this constellation that's pretty all encompassing. Mm. And now you're measuring that. And as you measure it, it will improve. And so there's a level of purpose and there's a level of confidence that comes along with that. Right. And as that goes along. And so one of the tricks in all of this is when you get stuck in this place of, I've got my workout stuff at home, but why am I even doing this anymore? It doesn't really matter. I haven't been out and seen people that look at me and go, oh, wow, you're so fit. If that's one of your motivators. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I haven't been able to go and play on my competitive ice hockey team because COVID, right? Whatever the thing is that you were like using as this motivation or as this like sense of purpose for why you would be doing something, you have to generate that now, mm-hmm. right? Where before there were all of these sort of extrinsic factors that we could tap into to get that little boost, to get that little whatever we needed to, get to the gym that day or to like whatever, mm-hmm. It's easy to talk about this stuff with fitness because everybody kind of has this, but it really, the externalities go out into like pretty much every aspect of your life.
Yeah. I mean, what you're really talking about though is high performance on a lot of levels. Like you're talking about really like what are all the things that make someone activate at a really high level so that they're completely owning the zone of their life. You know, they're not just lollygagging through it. They're like, you are in the driver's seat. You're captaining like your experience in this life.
Yeah, 100%. And that's really it, is being the captain of your own ship and choosing how to drive this thing and how to make it work. And if you want to talk about a way to differentiate yourself, you know, so if you're a person who's been in a company and you know, remote work changed everything about what's going on, but you're like, man, you know, it'd be kind of cool to get into a management position or whatever this thing is. There's no time like right now to step up and differentiate yourself from the pack. Yeah. I mean, you know, on like every level.
Totally.
This is, you know, and this is one of the things that, like, I mean, I supervised people for 19 of the 22 years, you know what I mean, that I worked for the fire department, you know, and I did a lot of hiring. I did a lot of interviewing. I did a lot of like career development stuff with people, you know, and the thing that across the board, the thing that you look for is somebody who's taking, you know, lemons and lemonade, right? They're taking this current situation and they're turning it into something that allows them to continue to progress. Mm-hmm. And that is 100% a skill that you can cultivate, you know, like some people just naturally do it. They're like, oh yeah, well, this is cool. There's nothing to do. Okay. I'm going to flip these rocks over and wash the bottom of them. You know what I mean? Or whatever.
Yeah.
Some people are not that way, but you can be that way. And the way to do it is to pick something in your life that you never let slip and continuously work on it. And then that's going to bubble out into everything else. Yeah. So it's like, if you want to separate yourself from the pack right now, you know, it's a fantastic opportunity where everybody else is taking a break, you know, I mean, and we kind of got through, like, this would have been really good advice in like June, you know what I mean? Cause everybody was really slumping. Yeah. But what's going on now is that we had this little crescendo where we're coming up, we're like, all right, everything's going to be, and then we're going to get a vaccine and everything's going to be good. And now we're seeing that that's absolutely not true. Mm-hmm. And right now is where the gears are going to have to start to grind. Mm-hmm. Like, we're just now, in my opinion, getting into the grind of this thing. Totally. You know what I mean? Like in fire season vernacular, we're in August, you know, like all the fun, all the like, yeah, this is a great job. All of that stuff. Like, you've washed all the toilets, you've done all of the things and fires. You've been to a couple of fires, but you're like, oh damn, dude, it's August. I know. And I still have like 3 more months. Yeah. It's like, and this is just getting going. Yeah. And that's where we're at right now, I think, you know, so there's really no time like the present to take stock in what it is that you've got going on, what areas are slipping, what areas can you shore up very quickly, and then just start and see how it affects the rest of your life. Everything, you know, that saying, a rising tide lifts all ships, right? So if you think about all of these aspects of your life as your little ships floating around, you've got your family, you've got your work, you've got investments, you've got hobbies, you've got all of these things, you know, and you're the tide. And if you can just start to improve the fitness, if you can start to improve your self-awareness, if you can start to improve any one of these little levers that you can start to pull, the tide comes up and everything else gets better. I mean, I can't think of a single example where this isn't true. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, obviously there's like super far end of the spectrum stuff, right? Where you can get like a little crazy with your fitness and it starts to wear on your immune system, right? Like there's that. But I mean, everything else, it's pretty. I mean, you hear people say all the time, like, oh, I want to feel confident in the way I look, or like, I want to confident. It's like all this language around feeling confident, but it coming from a place of like how you look. Yeah. It's like, it's innate in us that there's something about our physicality that gives us confidence. Yeah. You know, and it's like, whether that's right or wrong, or you want to argue both sides of that, whatever. But the bottom line, that it's like, it's intrinsic in us that the way we feel physically makes us project a certain version of ourselves into our reality. Yeah. And so if you are owning that version of yourself, you are just going to be more powerful in everything that you create. 100%. I mean, the simplest way to do a test retest on that is to buy a new suit, have it tailored.
Yeah.
How do you feel wearing your old suit? How do you feel wearing your new suit? I mean, you're the exact same person, but now all of a sudden you feel different, you know?
Yeah.
And that exact thing is repeatable in every single aspect of your life. You know?
So here's something I want to ask you though, because like a few months ago, before we moved to Jackson Hole, it was actually really interesting because I think you were really having kind of like a little dark night of the soul, sort of figuring out like, what the hell am I doing? Right.
Yeah.
So like, what do you say to someone who's in that space, but they don't even have the want to get out of it? Like they don't even have either, they don't have an experience of remembering themselves ever being that way. So coming from the energetic place that they're at right now to get to it, it seems like impossible, or they just like can't even muster up the care to get there, you know? Like, what do you say to that person, you know, at this particular time? Because I think there's a lot of that consciousness right now.
Yeah. So there has to be a want. If there's not a want, then there's nothing, then nothing's going to change. Yeah. You know what I mean? And maybe there shouldn't, right? Like if you don't want to change, and you're totally happy with everything that's going on and your scenario is not directly impacting those around you, and you don't want to change, then, you know, there's nothing I can say that's going to sort that out. Right.
Yeah, totally.
But let's say that you don't want to change, but you look around you and your family is suffering because of who you are, then you should probably recognize that that is in fact your responsibility. You know what I mean? And so I think to start with, it takes a very real and deep sort of audit of who you are and how it's affecting the people around you, you know, and then you have to take responsibility for that. And that's the kind of hard truth of it, is that there's no, it's on you. You know what I mean? Even if you're in a shitty situation, right, and you keep blaming your situation, get out of the situation or do something about it. You know, there's like, it 100% is your responsibility to make this stuff happen. And so I guess that would be the first thing that I would say is like, all right, take a 360 degree view of what's going on around you, identify like the problems, and then take responsibility for them and solve them.
I feel like I found the juncture at which you and I completely agree on everything. This is like where the fire chief and the spiritual
and the
hippie finally intersect and agree, which is your reality is your responsibility.
Yeah. No, I mean, it really is. I mean, and so this is the thing, is like, that can feel like a lot. You know, you're like, oh man, my reality is so big and I don't even know what to do about it to fix it. Right. It doesn't matter. There's no other way other than to take responsibility for it. And then, you know, and so here's two things that might seem diametrically opposed, but they're not. Self-discipline and self-compassion, right? Like you've got to have both of those things, and you need the discipline to grind, and you need the compassion to allow yourself to fail, right? Because this is the thing, is we know that success is just like the person who stacked up the most failures, right?
Totally, yeah.
And if you don't have self-compassion, then you're not going to allow yourself to fail, because you'll beat yourself up so fucking bad about it that it's too scary, you know. And if you can't have compassion for yourself, then you can't imagine that someone else would have compassion for you, and your fear of failure is just going to snowball. Totally. Yeah. And so you have to have both of those things. Yeah. Yeah. You know, so you really, you know, you take that look around you and recognize that every single thing that is going on, good and bad, in your life is a reflection of you and how you're, you know, creating the world around you through your relationships, you're with the people around you, yourself, all of that. And then give yourself a pat on the back and like a hand up from a compassion perspective to say, yeah, shit. Okay. Yeah, this is me. I did create all of this stuff, and that's okay. And from here on out, this is how I'm going to do it. And that's really where the discipline component comes in, because you just got to start. You do. You just have to start, and you have to do it. And it's like, you know, Jocko Willink nails it. I mean, he's 100% right that discipline equals freedom. That's the deal. If you can be disciplined about what it is that you're doing, then you're free.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you see it on all levels. It's like even just thinking about your daily calendar, using that as an example. And it's like, if you just write everything down that you have to do with time slots for that, now your mind is literally free to be present in the moment instead of juggling every hour and every minute of like, oh, wait, what am I supposed to do? What was on my list today? Where am I going? I mean, even just if you look at that little small snapshot of reality and then blow that up.
Yeah.
And like, the one thing that I love that you say is just like having the compassion for yourself in the process of it, because I think some people look around and they think some people are just more apt to be able to pull these things off or not feel all the feelings that you feel inside about taking these steps. Every single person that you see that has succeeded at something you want to succeed failed and went through all the heartache and all the suffering and all the difficulty of it, but did it over and over again until they finally grabbed a gear and something shifted. And on top of it, they just got really, really comfortable with the fact that that's the journey, which then made it easier,
Yeah, no, it's totally true. And so like, I think about this sometimes. So you can have, I mean, this is like a principle that we talk about in strength and conditioning. And, so you've got two people that are carrying the exact same amount of weight up a hill, right? And you can look at their faces and tell which one's having a better time than the other one. You know what I mean? And so you can think about that like any other aspect of success, right? You look at somebody and you're like, oh man, we're doing the same things, but look how much happier they are. It's like, I'm just over here struggling, and look at them. Like they're just so happy and smiling and like breathing through their nose, And what's the difference? It's like the difference is that person put in the work to be fit enough to smile, carrying that load up that hill. You didn't. Yeah. Not yet. Anyway.
Yeah.
You're just not there yet.
Example.
And so it's like, okay, well, what do you got to do? You got to just keep putting in reps. You just got to keep doing it until next thing you know, you're like, oh, look, I can carry this and smile at the same time. It's totally fine. And that's the thing. I mean, I think it's, I don't know, maybe Marcus Aurelius, maybe, right? It's like, if it's endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining. Like that's that's his thing. He's like, look, are you doing it? Yeah. Then shut up. You're doing it. Like, what good is it doing to like bitch about it? Yeah. It's like you're physically capable or mentally capable or whatever you're doing it. Just keep doing it. Just
keep doing it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, a huge piece of it is like, and I don't know what the deal is. Like if we're all just trying to be a little too compassionate with other people, and so we're like there's a real tendency to let people off the hook right now. Oh, it's okay. That's hard. That's pretty tough. It's not a big deal. Maybe tomorrow you can do it again or whatever. Right. There's this, we want to do that. Right. And I think that, I think we've got things a little bit backwards right now, going back to this self-compassion thing. I think that we have a tendency to beat ourselves up really, really bad and then throw all of that compassion out to the people around us, and I think that we should do the opposite thing. I think we need to hold the people around us accountable and be compassionate to ourselves, because I really think that, I think there's very, very few people out there who let themselves off the hook more than the people around them. You know what I mean? Like I've worked with so many people and so many leaders, and like, I can like think of one maybe who was like that, who was just a total slapdick, but then was like hardcore on everybody around, but he was still successful because ultimately, he was holding his people accountable.
Yeah, exactly.
And kind of, but he was a dick. But that,
you know who you are.
I know. Yeah. You know who you are. Probably.
Actually, you have no idea.
But it's one of those things, right? It's like this, you kind of going back to your original question, like, what do you tell somebody who's really kind of stuck in this moment? And it's that self-audit, it's, you've got to look around, you've got to see what's going on, and you have to identify the things that need to be fixed. And then you need to take responsibility to fix them. And whether that's cutting people out of your life or bringing new people into your life or asking for help, whatever, it's you have to generate that, and take responsibility for it. And that can be a hard thing to start, and so that's where I think pick one thing and do it every single day. And if you're going to do that, it should be something fitnessy, and so I started another Instagram called 0.5 Mountain, which is like 0.5 mountain time idea, right? So I've been getting up and doing a specific practice every single morning. I started doing it like at 5, and then I just started getting up earlier and earlier. And so now it's like it happens somewhere between 4:30 and 5. But, this can be anything, or you can go to 0.5 Instagram and like pull up the different morning routines that I've been doing. But something that couples breathing with physical movement, and it should be really annoying to do. Like that's the thing. It's got to be, you have to not want to do it in order to get the benefit of doing it. You know what I mean? It's like, and I'm not talking about, it's not that it needs to be some crazy, hardcore CrossFit type workout, whatever. No, it just needs to be annoying. Like there's something about in Kundalini yoga. This is like what they do is annoy you with stupid little stuff long enough that at the end you're like, oh, thank God. This is amazing. You know what I mean?
I feel so amazing now.
I feel so amazing that I don't have to do this stupid thing anymore. But there's something to it. There's 100% something to it, And so I'm looking for a physical movement that requires you to be present in that, right? So they need to be somewhat complicated little movements, and then something that taps you back into your breath, and it just needs to be done every single morning.
I love it.
And it's like, so talking about numerology. So the alpha protocol, which is the first one that I was doing, was 11 burpees, which you can Google or look up. It's like a burpee, but there's no jumping. 11 arm haulers, which is kind of like a Superman. It's a back extension exercise. And then 11 alternating nostril breaths. So in through the left, out through the right. Right?
Do you hold one side?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I was like, whoa, that's really amazing.
Breathe with your left lung only.
Like, whoa. That is really complicated. Okay.
I'm glad you clarified that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you just plug one nostril and in through one, out through the other. So 11 burpees, 11 arm haulers, 11 nostril breaths, rounds in 11 minutes.
11. And you will ascend.
And yeah, and why not, right? It's like some
totally.
people think the 11s are important.
Yeah.
And it's an oddball number. It's something that, so you remember in the CrossFit games, or was it the qualifiers? So in CrossFit, it's always like 21, 15, 9, right? There's like always these numbers, right, that you use for everything. And at the games, or maybe the qualifiers, they did like 22.
Oh.
Remember?
I don't remember. Oh yeah, I do.
There was there was an entire thing that was like 22 of everything, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And it just throws your mind off because you're like, oh, I got 21 of these, no problem. You're like, but 22.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a place to start.
Yeah.
Do that. And so what I would say is, if any of this rambling has resonated, especially like the last part, less to do with the stock exchange. If you're stuck in this spot and you want to, see a way out, then go take the assessment. That you can just go to the link down below in the show notes, go on there, take the assessment, go through it. It'll take you like 5 minutes, and that'll be helpful. You have some tips and some stuff that comes out of that, right? So you go in and you answer all of these questions, and then it'll like print out some results based on what I think about all this stuff, based on your inputs and my thoughts on this whole thing, right? So do that. That'll give you a little bit of a roadmap of like what might be going on, and then start doing one of these morning practices.
I love it.
Get up and make it happen.
And where can people find this assessment?
At the link
below.
All
right. Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's the best place to get it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Or email you, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could email me, but you definitely just click the link below. That'll be the easiest way to do it.
Okay.
Because I'm just going to send you the link below.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So can we end this podcast with a fun story?
Yes.
The fun story is going to be told by you about how you met. I want you to tell a story about the spaceship when you were on Iboga. How you went on the spaceship.
Didn't we talk about this?
No.
On the podcast a while ago?
Did we? I wasn't there.
Okay, maybe we didn't. All right. Okay. So after all of that stuff that I said about Iboga feeling true, this one will blow your mind. So part of the like the way that things go down in that whole world is that it's like you get like TV screens or like vignettes, right? So there'll be like a little movie script that just kind of floats by, and if it catches your interest, then you can like watch it, you know? And then if you watch it long enough, then you're in it. That's kind of how it goes.
Before we go much further, I want to preface this story with a little anecdote telling you that. Sorry for me to say that. I have to really enunciate it to get the right one syllable. Yeah. What was it, like a year ago or something? I announced to Adam that he was an Arcturian, that is where his soul was created. He's an alien from a specific solar system, or not solar system, from a specific star. No, is it a? I
don't know, man.
It's like what is it? A constellation. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And and it's Arcturus is the
constellation.
I think actually it's the star. I'm pretty sure. Oh. I don't know. Don't fact check me or do fact check me. But I got this download that Adam's like soul was from this celestial tribe, and they happen to be really amazing engineers, space engineers, and like major celestial travelers. So take it away.
Okay. So I'm watching this movie, and this spaceship, this big, long, black, like, looks like a rock. I mean, it looks like a spaceship, but it's like made out of a rock. I don't know. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, it's a very, very potent psychedelic. Right? So it's like, it's this big rock spaceship, like pulls up, so to speak, you know, and is talking to me. And it's like telepathically talking to me. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. You got the wrong guy, you know? And they're like, no, you need to remember where you came from, and you need to get on this spaceship and come with me, you know? And I'm like, nope, you know, this is not what's going to happen. So actually, let me back this up. So one of the sort of pointers that we got prior to this experience, this Iboga experience from the facilitator, was if ancestors show up, which they usually do, feel free to carry on a conversation, talk with them. But if they ask you to go with them, don't go with them. You don't want to go back to where they came from, you know? And he's like, and it might be really tempting, just don't go. I'm like, all right, fair enough. So I was like totally prepared to deal with that, like with my grandpa or something, right? But this spaceship shows up and is like, come with me, you know, this is where you came from. I'm like, no fucking way, dude, you got the wrong guy. Then they're like, no, this is you just need to remember, like, come with me. I'm going to show you. I have something to show you, you know? And I was like, okay, why not? You know? So like I bought it for a little while. I tried. I was like, all right, whatever. What could go wrong?
Yeah, exactly.
So I like get on this spaceship, and it feels so familiar. Like it's the weirdest thing. You know, I'm like, oh, I've been in here before. You know what I mean? Like this is my spaceship, you know, is like what starts to creep in. And then it's like, yeah, you built this spaceship. Like you designed this spaceship. And I was like, that feels true. Yeah, I guess it feels like my spaceship. I'm like, okay, all right, let's go. You know, so, and we go and we're like flying through space, obviously. And then we arrive at this planet, and it's like the craziest. Like the moon is maybe almost the same size as the planet kind of a situation. So like the horizon is just like filled up with this other planet and this whole crazy place. And I was like, okay, now like, why are we here? Like, I don't understand what this is. And they just keep telling me like, you need to remember what's going on here. I'm like, okay. So then I see this crazy building. It's this like, I mean, I can't even describe it. It's this weird arc shaped building with this like tower that comes out of the middle of it that's all gold, and it's like the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen. I'm like, oh my God, this thing's amazing, you know? And they're like, yeah, you built it. And I'm like, what? And they're like, you need to remember, like, this is where you're from. You designed this spaceship, you built this building, like this is your place. And I was like, I don't remember, you know? And they're like, you have to remember. And then I like had to throw up.
And then Adam tells me this story, and I'm like, I told you so.
I told you. Those are Arcturians.
Those are Arcturians, bro.
I don't know. Like, what did they look like? I'm like, I don't know. Like, one was a spaceship, and the other one was a building. But
right.
yeah.
Well, hopefully that's a nice little story to just kind of marry the reality of what you get with the Lamberts.
Seriously.
Discipline and psychedelics.
And occasionally some stock market shenanigans. But yeah, if anything that I said about this stuff is kind of resonating with you, then and you're like really like legit looking to make some shit happen in your life, then check out the assessment. It's like first step. Get your eyes on what's going on with you, and either you'll have an opportunity if you want to discuss that whole thing with me. Mm-hmm. You know, if you want to go through the assessment and then get my take on the whole thing, I'm happy to do that too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks folks for joining us. We hope that this was a entertaining
podcast,
informative, maybe slightly confusing at times. And if so, we delivered on all of our madness.
You just got the be the wellness 2021 version of that. But yeah, man, you know, like this podcast show, people. Subscribe. Smash that. What do they say? What do the YouTube guys always say? Smash the
fist. I don't know.
Smash the like button or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're too old.
Diamond hands us.
Diamond hands us. All right, people.
All right, guys. We love you. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.